I only had one or two guys on shift, so man, they loved it when the volunteers stayed down there. And my
Mm-hmm.
career guys found out real quick. If they weren't nice to the volunteers, they'd be in the damn station by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would come in and they would ride the apparatus just like a regular guy. And they had been trained. And so they would spend hours. Sometimes they'd come in after work at, say, 5 or 6 o'clock and even be there to midnight. Some would stay all night. Once in a while, we'd get some during the day, but it didn't really matter during the day because we had all the admin people there. And they were all firefighters, the
Right.
fire inspectors and myself and the two deputies and so on. So we didn't worry too much about it during the day. But sometimes they came down. I started having career guys coming back doing other work. And under Fair Labor Standards Act that was enacted for fire in '86, I think it was. The Fair Labor Standards Act was enacted in the '30s, but public employees were exempted. Then public employees, non-governmental um, functions, like in Gainesville, Florida, they run an electric company up there. They became consistent. The Fair Labor Standards Act says you work 40 hours a week or get overtime, and you get time and a half, and that, and so on. So,
Mm-hmm.
in the fire, when the fire service came in '86, you could work 53 hours a week until overtime, and so we worked 56 hours, which meant they got an extra 3 hours at time and a half. Or they could take, you can implement every 6 shifts a Kelly day, which is an extra day off, which lowered your weekly amount to below 53. You know, some departments, Boca Raton now is only 42 hours a week. They work one day on and 4 days off, which is really a nice shift to have. My guys worked 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 4 days off. And they loved it. That's not the common shift. That's the Los Angeles county shift. And our guys loved it. I did a lot of research and picked that one because guys would take one day off the last day and they'd have a whole week. And the young guys, they'd hop in a car and go to the Keys and go scuba diving
Mm-hmm.
for 3 or 4 days and never use a vacation day. So that really worked nice. They could take 2 vacation days and have about a week and a half of vacation.
Yeah, I guess if you
The
get a
most,
call on the 20th hour and you're a little sleepy,
huh?
by the time you get to the fire, the adrenaline's flowing and you're awake.
Yeah. Well, the other part is the most common shift in the country and the shift they use now, 24 on and 48 off. You see these C's that I got written there?
Yeah.
That's C shift, that's Herb shift, and Justin and Rich. Miguel is on Sarasota County. He's on A shift, which is the shift before. Their numbers or letters are different. He's on the day before Herb. So,
Yeah, I remember when we did it that day.
yeah.
You were doing all Herb shift, and I was like, okay,
So
so
why do some places have volunteer fire departments and some places are paid? Why?
Well, a lot of it is just the history. Down here, it's very hard in Florida. It's very hard to get volunteers. Down here, you don't have families that grew up. I'll give you an example. In New Jersey, in the Denville, where I became a life member, we had a school teacher. We had a guy that was a foreman in public works for the city of Denville. Well, he was available all the time because the city allowed them to come and be a volunteer whenever it came in during the day. But up there were histories. It was very common, just like it is in New York City Fire Department, for family members, different generations, grow up, and even to the point now, it didn't used to be, but now you'll get daughters and sisters that will join. Last night there was a special on 60 Minutes. If you have a chance to go on the streaming thing and look at 60 Minutes from last night,
Mm-hmm.
that was very interesting because they talked about individual firefighters that survived and how they survived and everything. And then they talked about rebuilding the fire department because New York lost 323 that day, and they lost a tremendous amount of the upper tier. So they had to move everybody up and rebuild the fire. And then they talked about all of the children and grandchildren of the guys that were killed are now in the department. Dozens of them.
That's awesome.
They were there. There's a girl there. Her father was killed. She was determined that she was going to become a firefighter, and she worked at it. Women have a hard time because the upper body strength, they don't have it. They have to really work and get it because you got to be able to haul ass a lot of work. When they were going up in the towers on 9/11, they were carrying basically between their bunker gear, their air pack, and the equipment they were carrying, they had close to 100 pounds on them.
It's amazing that
They made it all the way to the 78th floor.
Wow.
I'm amazed if they could keep up with the guys with all that weight, because the guys are at least twice as powerful when it comes to just raw muscle power, but they might have the endurance on the other hand.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Well,
Oh,
the
yeah.
women have to have the endurance and the upper body strength and everything else. I had
girls love
at least
stairs.
two
It
paid-
makes their butt big, so
I
they're
had two
probably
paid
real
women.
strong.
I had 2 paid women in my department. They had to pass the state exam and everything.
Right.
And I had one. She just recently retired out of Longboat Key as a deputy chief. I can't remember her name now. She's a fairly small cow. She put the paid guys to shame because one of the things you got to do is put your bunker gear on and put your self-contained breathing apparatus on in a certain amount of time. And she beat all the guys back when she was only about 18. She was a cadet. She was like 17 or 18. She beat every damn guy. And I had at least 3 or 4 guys that had big egos. And she beat them all.
I wonder how if she just did it her whole life, or if she just practiced.
She practiced when she was a cadet. And,
Right.
and practiced
She
and
wanted to
did
be
it.
better than a man.
And so she did it. And I had another one that was a paid. That was became my training chief's wife.
Oh.
And
Wow.
she's now the mother of 2 children, 2 or 3 children, and they got married eventually. He's retired, and she retired way before. And so Cindy Losh is her name. And now she's Cindy Thayer. But so there's a lot of different ways. But down here in Florida, most of the time you become a volunteer. First off, now you have to go through over 120 hours to become certified to be able to ride apparatus, and that by state law. It used to be there was a 40-hour, and you could ride. Now it's 120 hours, and they've made it hard. So it's very hard for a guy working a regular job to be able to do all the training and go to school and all that kind of stuff. And get to 120 hours of training and everything. And then most departments require volunteers to attend weekly training. Ours was on Monday night. And we did it every night except the first Monday of the month. That was the officers' meeting. But every other Monday night was training from, I don't know, 6 or 6:30 to 9 or 10. And you had to make a certain percentage. If you did, you became ineligible to ride. And nobody wanted to do that. So as a result. And you had to make a certain percentage of the calls.
So how many hours in the night did you do?
What do you mean? Well, a lot of them would come in at 7 o'clock in the evening, or after they got off for work, and stay until 6 or 7 the next morning when they had to leave to go to work.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You guys work till the morning.
They would just do 24 straight.
But when I hired Herb in 1990, I left in 92. But I hired him in 90, so he's getting ready to retire after almost 35 years. He's been a battalion chief since 2002. So he's been a battalion chief for now almost 20 years. And that's where he's been offered to go up, and he doesn't want to. He just wants to stay a battalion chief. because that gets them to go out on in the stations and the crews and go on calls and work the 1-on-3. If the next level up is a 5-day week, and he doesn't want that. He wants to stay on the shift work. One of the biggest issues we have in the fire service in cities and counties, they don't understand. A firefighter that works shift work is like a firefighter or, say, a lieutenant, which is a company officer. They're eligible for overtime. Well, they do shift swaps and they do overtime, a lot of overtime work in that. So if they make a base salary of $60,000, they probably have a salary total of around $80,000 with the overtimes and thing that they have. Well, if you go to battalion chief next, a lot of the city HR people, oh, well, that's a $10,000 jump, and they only jump them from 60 to 70. Nobody wants the job because they have to take a pay cut. They're no longer eligible for overtime, and they take home less money for their family. And it's very hard because I've done some salary studies for cities or counties, and the HR people are saying, you know, no, and I show them specific people. I say, now, why would this guy ever want to go up to there to take a pay cut? Oh, we didn't know that. I say, well, take a look at your people. They're all making overtime and so on because they're eligible.
But then here's the big question. When you aren't making overtime anymore because you're in that position, do you work similar hours? Or
yeah, you work the 24 hours. But during things like a hurricane and so on, most agencies have a thing where they kick you into a different pay grade so you get paid for all the hours that you're working.
Okay.
But Herb had a very, very bad call. When you came on, when Lisa was here, Herb was supposed to be here. At 1 o'clock in the morning, they got a structure fire call up here with people trapped, and a baby was killed in the fire.
Damn.
Herb was supposed to get off at 8 o'clock that morning. He didn't get done. He was up from 1 o'clock in the morning he didn't go home until 10 o'clock in the morning. He didn't get paid extra for that. It was part of the job, doing all the paperwork and everything else that had to be done, making sure all the units were back in service and so on. And he went home and went to bed. And then he got up because there was a meeting he had to go to at 5 o'clock, and then he came here because he was going to meet with Lisa. And but so there are occasions when they have to work extra hours that don't get paid. But Herbert's making right around $100,000.
With the overtime and stuff, right?
No, he didn't get overtime.
Oh, he doesn't anymore?
No, he's salaried.
Oh, okay.
But he's making $100,000. Period.
But he's a great man though. Like
Oh, yeah,
him, Justin, Miguel.
He's a good battalion chief.
They are all great. I think they're some of the best people I've ever met. Like when it comes to fire departments, anyways. You know, because there's a lot of people who just don't
But
care.
if you're really interested in the New York thing, go when you go home. Go. I assume you have ways to go into not Yahoo. What is it? YouTube.
Yeah.
And look for 60 Minutes from last night,
Okay.
which is the 13th.
That was a 9/11.
No, 12th.
So,
That was a 9/11 special or whatever.
Well, the 60 Minutes had a special. It was different than everything else.
Yeah, because we watched this.
No, this was you never saw it. It
Oh,
was on last night,
okay.
and
Smithsonian? Is that it?
huh?
That channel? What was it? Smithsonian or?
No, it wasn't any of those. I'm trying to tell you. 60
60
Minutes had its own special last night
Okay.
that focused on something different.
Yeah.
It focused on a lot of the firefighters who survived.
Mm.
Some of them came down with the towers and survived in a stairwell on the 6th floor.
oh yeah, I remember that.
And others just got out ahead of time. They also focused. They had the telephone conversation between a woman on the 83rd floor of the tower that was first hit, which was the second one to come down.
Right.
And she was on the phone with dispatch, begging for help. And the dispatcher kept telling her that people were on their way. And the chief safety officer was in the building climbing. He was at, she was on 83. He was up to 75 or 76.
Damn.
And then it came down, and he was killed.
Right.
And so was she.
Rest in peace to that.
And as well as there were around 25,000 people in those two towers when the planes hit. They only lost 2,000.
Courage can get you
They
killed.
got
sure.
over 20. The fire department got over 20, either by self-evacuation or getting people out. The reason those guys survived in the stairwell was they were helping a woman who couldn't get herself out. And they were carrying her, taking their time and getting her down. She said, "Leave me, go, leave me, leave me." Yeah. No, and they stayed with her. And they all survived.
Yep. And then all of a sudden it was doom, doom.
Well, they heard what they said last night. And they said you could hear it, boom, 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 boom. They were there waiting to get, they said, we figured we'd hear a tap on our shoulder and then we'd be dead.
Talk about horrific. That's like the worst 10 seconds ever.
Well, even the firemen, like, they were outside, and there was the first death, I think, was a fireman, I think.
No, it was the chaplain. The number one person killed, first person killed, was a chaplain.
Okay, but when the outside of the building was coming down, there was people there
they were all around.
that got buried, and a lot of firemen.
There were several that were buried that were uncovered.
Those clouds were crazy. I remember seeing people running.
Oh yeah.
And it was just this big.
There was so much power in those. If you were running a car, you'd knock you down. That's how strong.
That's crazy.
But the two towers came down. Then then the hotel came down. Two towers were here, and the hotel was in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
That came down. Then World Trade Center number 7. Which was about 40 stories over here. That came down later in the day.
The world's only steel construction building to go down from a fire, right?
Pardon?
Is that true? It's the world's, besides the World Trade Centers, Tower 7 is that the only steel construction building to ever collapse from
I don't
fire?
know. Well,
nothing hit that.
No, the towers were steel too. One of the things that weakened them so bad.
Right, besides those, though.
Well, there's been no high-rise in the world that has totally collapsed.
Right.
Except for the World Trade Center grouping.
Right.
So
why did that one collapse? It didn't have jet fuel burning inside of it to weaken those.
Well, it ended up having fire inside of it.
Jet fuel fire, though? It had to have been really hot to get it that hot.
Well, that plus it had tremendous impacts of pieces of the airplane falling on it. All kinds of stuff.
True.
But there was a major fire inside that building.
But the airplane wasn't coming down; it was coming at.
Yeah, no, the planes did not hit the tower number 7.
Heavy enough debris hits certain parts of the building,
it's gonna collapse. But
that might not do it.
What happened with the towers? Because there's been a lot of studies done.
Oh, yeah, they just
melted.
They got so hot they weakened and they just.
Well, yeah, but that's oversimplification. When they came in with the fuel and everything, they burned and blew off all of the fire retardant that was on the steel.
Mm-hmm.
That then exposed the steel without any protection to the intense fire.
Mm.
Okay. And the reason Tower
that makes sense.
2 came down, the second tower that was hit, I think it was hit at...
it was hit lower than the first one, I remember.
Yes, which meant there was more weight on the thing, and that came down first. That's the one that came down...
They came down in order, if I'm not mistaken.
Huh?
I think they came down in order.
No. The tower that was hit second came down first.
Really?
Yes. Believe me, I know.
I believe you. That means I've been wrong for 20 years.
The tower that came down second, the plane had hit much higher up.
Right.
And it was less weight.
Imagine being in that one after watching the other one fall.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, there were 670 people from one financial firm that were killed.
Yeah, a lot of people were told to stay.
Well, when the first tower got hit, some of the people in the second tower were told to stay in place.
Right.
But as soon as firefighters worked their way up through there, they started, and they had fire marshals that were guys appointed by their business. There was one guy that saved over 600 people, one fire marshal. Now, he wasn't with the fire department. He was the fire marshal for that business. And he said, "The hell with staying. We're getting out now." And he got 600 of the people, and he got the last of them out, turned around back in to go see if there were more, and he got caught and killed. He's I can't remember his name now, but he's well known and well publicized about his dedication and what he had done.
Well, when we were watching football, remember his that one guy, Charles A. something. He had his daughter in that picture. Remember?
Yeah.
And she sang the national anthem.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
She was a baby in his arms. There was a picture before he was killed.
Yeah.
Now she's about 23 years old.
It was an amazing tribute. I mean, to your father.
She sang
wow.
She sang the national anthem, and she had a nice voice.
Beautiful.
Pretty girl. Because she's now about 20. I'm going to say 20th anniversary. She's probably 21 or 22.
I would guess 24. Probably she's
I
probably.
don't think she's that old because she wasn't 4 when she was being held by her father.
Okay. Yeah.
But somewhere's in that.
But it was an amazing tribute, and she knew all the other fire people, and they were around her, kneeling.
Yeah.
When she was done singing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's gonna make me cry.